Hey everybody! Today we celebrate and honor the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In preparation for this video, I reread his letter from Birmingham jail. I put a link to it in the description below, and if you've never read it, I highly recommend it. It's a great look at the history of segregation, Jim Crow laws, and unfortunately, the way many churches chose not to stand up against injustice. And as I look over the past few years, I cannot help but feel saddened that the state of the church in King's letter, written almost 60 years ago, looks eerily similar to the church of today. King warns, the contemporary church is so often a weak, ineffectual voice with an uncertain sound. It is so often the arch supporter of the status quo. He's recognizing that the church was more vocal about keeping things the way they were than actively creating justice in the world. And pay attention, you see this throughout our history. Christians were some of the staunchest supporters of slavery, then supporters of segregation, and now we still see some Christians supporting the unequal treatment of black people by police. So often in our history, we see Christians siding with the oppressor more than helping the oppressed. We see Christians watching injustice in the world and doing nothing. In this season of fasting, my research and study of these topics led me to Isaiah chapter 58. The people of Israel complained to God, "Why have we fasted and you have not seen it? Why have we humbled ourselves and you haven't noticed?" The Lord tells Isaiah, "On the day of your fasting, you do as you please and exploit all your workers. Your fasting ends in quarreling and strife and in striking each other with wicked fists. You cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high." Even though the Israelites were fasting, their actions didn't match their supposed faith. Could the same be said for some of us? In the midst of this 21-day fast, what do your surrounding actions say about you? What do my actions say about me? God goes on to tell Isaiah, "Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood?" God, in his perfect grace and mercy, freed us all from sin and death. And we deserved that death because we all have sinned. So we, having been freed from chains we justly deserved, should be moved to break chains that unjustly bind people. And there are many in the world still living with chains. They may be physical chains still present by unjust laws, or they may be invisible chains kept in place by unjust systems, or even spiritual chains that we know many still have. Also, God has blessed so many of us so much. How often do we use those blessings to help those who are hungry or homeless? How often have we used those blessings to help take care of refugees or immigrants? That's the poor wanderer God is talking about in this passage. Or do we get our blessings and turn away from our own flesh and blood? Do not forget that we are all God's creations, no matter what language we speak, what country we're from, or how weird we look. God made us all and loves us all. Do not turn away from another one of God's creations in need. If we can fast this way, if we can live this way, God promises a few things to Isaiah and to us. Then your healing will quickly appear. Then you will call and the Lord will answer. Then you will cry for help and he will say, "Here am I." The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and he will strengthen your frame. In summary, if you need healing, love and care for others. If you need answers, love and care for others. If you need help, love and care for others. If you need guidance, love and care for others. If you need strength, you guessed it, love and care for others. In these 21 days of fasting, we've been talking about being all in, loving the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. The first and greatest commandment. Jesus followed this up by telling us the second greatest commandment. Love your neighbor as yourself. Let's love our neighbors, and with the power of God, free them from all oppression. Then we won't be the weak, ineffectual voice that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. warned us about. Jesus loves you, and so do I.